Good afternoon. Super exciting day for me and the community, and we're delighted to see the number of residents that have joined us today. Eli and I are really excited to continue to share on the journey of Horizon House as changes happen. So we have this being shown, Risa, is that correct? Live on, it's not live, it is being recorded. So it's being recorded and the stream is not functioning, Risa, is that correct? Okay, well, usually I've not been up here talking a lot about access control lately and Comcast and now streaming challenge, darn it, but this is being recorded, and as a reminder today, we're going to talk about, Eli's going to remind us and bring us up to speed on the 2025 projects that we have for this year. And then I'm going to talk about the West Tower expansion and those impacts and transitions. And change is inevitable at Horizon House and for any of us. And we don't leave it to chance because we planned, we think, with you and will continue to plan with you for these changes. And we're really excited to go through this with you today. And Eli's going to go ahead and jump right into our 2025 project updates.
Thank you. And in fact, I'll probably be so quick, you may not even need to leave. Okay, or you can. So just to share with everybody all of the projects that need to occur this year in preparation for, to support Brian and his transitioning, as well as the beginning of the construction for the West Tower. That's what I intend to show you here. So first is the dining room exit pathway, which I've mentioned during the fireside chats. And I'll go into further detail about that. And then the rest of the stuff is just very minor scope of work. It's actually, some of it's quite technical, but it's all located in the west wing portion of the university garage. So for the most part, it won't be seen. And I know one of the questions will likely be, well, what does this do to our parking? Brian, what will it do to the parking? Nothing. Yeah, at this time, we don't expect it to affect any parking, unless you're renting a parking space from Virginia Mason. If any of you are in the room, your parking spot may be disrupted. Okay, so again, the exit pathway for the dining room, instead of us being able to walk into the west wing like we normally would as a exit option of the dining room, we won't be able to do that once the construction begins. So we're going to create a code compliant egress pathway, before you get to before you get to the west wing. All right, well, what would that look like? So I'll spend a couple of minutes here on this slide. So just to orient everybody, at the bottom, across the bottom, that's University Street. This is a plan view. University Street. On the left-hand side, that's the west wing area, right? Our existing dining room is up on top. Charlene and Ruth Ann's offices are right here. Everybody kind of get a gist of what we're looking at? Okay, so code compliant, so life safety code requires two pathways for exiting for an assembly space as large as our dining room. One pathway is toward the lobby. The other pathway has been through the west wing. But instead of the west wing, we need to kind of cut through and make it to this stairwell. So, with that being said, yeah, so this is our existing situation. We have a route here to go into the west wing, a route up here to go to the west wing. And what we would need to do is make it more like this, so that when the West Tower is under construction, we'll have a temporary barrier here This down here, what used to be part of Executive Row, that's just going to be walled off. The West Tower, we won't have an area to cross over into the new West Tower at this point. So that's what it's currently going to, that's what it'll look like later this year. And you may want to ask, well, what about these other spaces? What happened to philanthropy and what happened to accounting? They will need to be moved temporarily, but at least philanthropy will come back. We will also put the meditation room in this area, as well as a new conference room. Also some bathrooms. So this is what we hope to accomplish in 2026, after the West Tower is under construction. Okay. That's, yes.
No, I came that path to get here
Yes.
because I had used the elevators in the West Wing in order to leave something for Monday Market.
Yes. I'll repeat the question. I'm good at repeating questions.
How would I have come back from the West Wing elevators under the new scheme?
So the new temporary, so this scheme is only relevant in 2026. By the time, right, so are you talking about, so in 2026, there'll be a temp barrier. You will no longer be in the West Wing.
So
It won't be there.
how will I get to the Monday Market?
Monday markets, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. And now I turn it over to Brian. Oh, sorry, another question. Anna, yeah.
Well, although you're going to make a new pathway, that pathway will be in place before the West Wing goes down, or not? In other words,
This, so right, the temporary barrier will not be installed until the new pathway is in place. The new pathway will be finished before the West Tower construction begins.
yes, but in the meantime, what I'm trying to find out is,
Yeah.
while you're building the new pathway, we will not be prevented from coming and going to the West Wing
Correct.
for X months.
Correct. While the pathway is while the new pathway is under construction, there'll definitely be some disruption. Right.
Yeah. Like
But-
yellow tape and walk around or whatever.
Right. But we will, going into the West Wing will still be possible all the way up until the point of,
The actual, like, this is it.
Correct, yes.
E-Day, end of passageway. Okay, thank you.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so there
I
will,
assure you that temp wall will be up prior to us tearing down the West Wing.
oh, like lemmings, we don't get to jump over.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So, right, so all the questions are, well, how do we get to Monday Market? Brian?
Well, yeah, so thank you, Eli.
You're welcome.
And I can keep that mic up here if needed. So thank you, Eli. Just to summarize, the terrace dining room, once we close the West Wing, when you exit towards the orchid area, that's going to be closed off, and we require another exit. Heaven forbid there's an emergency. So we have to create that extra exit that will be going through currently Charlene and Ruth Ann's office area and be routing into that corridor. So that's pre-work that must be done before we close that off. So it's one of those necessities as we grow. So I want to talk about our West Tower expansion phase. I've been calling phase 1 and phase 2 impacts. And I've been calling the West Wing phase 1 is the West Wing closing or the decommissioning. Hopefully that sounds familiar. I've mentioned it a couple times. And the phase 2 is the North Tower Bridge to the West Tower improvements. So that's a reminder. That's where our B3, B2, and the Parkview Terrace of our North Tower will be connected to our beautiful West Tower, and we're calling that the bridge that will allow us to keep the communities connected on those 3 different levels. And because that construction happens later, we're calling that a phase 2. That being said, as I've mentioned before, they happen simultaneously at some point, so we have to plan for all of it now prior to the West Wing decommissioning so that we can have all of that considered before we start making the changes to put all of these into place. So as we went through this, we had some objectives for us, that we wanted to support the residents and our staff to minimize interruptions of your activities and amenities and reduce that all the way through the construction. We wanted to ensure that we as staff and our other coworkers can provide support and serve you, their coworkers, and any guests that come in all the way through construction. And then we wanted to be fiscally responsible to mitigate the expenses associated with this, since it was a temporary situation for us. So those were the things that were at the forefront of our mind as we did this. And so how can we be successful in doing that? Is that we had to identify all of the impacted activities and areas that are going to be having such a transition during this West Tower expansion. So we met with the key stakeholders. So I had meetings with a number of you that are in the room to listen and understand what your needs and requirements are for anything that is impacted during this West Tower expansion. From that, we developed a plan that supported the objectives that I went over on the previous slide to ensure that the amenities and activities are supported and that we support staff to be able to support you, the rest of the community, and to try to mitigate expenditures associated with ensuring that these continue to happen. So through this, up to this point, we've been collaborating with residents, me speaking with the stakeholders, Ronnie actually spearheading a resident council West Tower expansion committee that we've met with a number of times, and all of the other committees that are impacted during this transition time. There's also a committee that I have yet to meet with that is on resident storage lockers to support those conversations that we have. So this collaboration that we've had up to today will continue all the way through the time when the exciting West Tower project is completed. And then we have to have effective communication through all of this. And I will speak to that later. And Amanda and her team are really on top of the communications for all of us to make sure that residents, family, and staff are in the loop. So with that, I'm going to start talking about the details associated with our West Tower expansion and the impacts. One of the things that we realized is that we have storage that's impacted, activities that are impacted, and then a number of activities that have storage. And we realized that we just can't fit all of that onto this campus through that entire time. So we had to go and look outside of our community for a space that could help support us. And the location that we're looking at is an off-site location for storage and we'll use for staff parking. The good news is it's only 3 blocks away, about a 10 or 15 minute walk. Now, if I'm walking, it might take longer. Eli can get there a lot faster than I can. And it's about a 5-minute drive. So we looked at other storage options in Tukwila or West Seattle, and could you imagine how long we'd be sitting in traffic? And so we're very delighted that we have found a location very close. And so once we have this storage off-site, we'd be working with our transportation team and Brian Byers to look at, is there a cadence we have for transportation or a shuttle? To be determined because we don't know yet, but we are certainly thinking about and planning to provide that. The off-site location we're looking at is the Seattle Presbyterian Church. And it is very close to us. And we haven't ironed out all of the details. We are working on that. Christy and I are working on that. And it is a building that they have a full city block that will accommodate our staff parking and storage for us in much of that campus. Currently, the campus is not occupied except for the bottom floor has a women's shelter right now. So this is what we believe a win-win for these two nonprofits, for us to be able to activate some of their space and for us to be able to have something very close to us that will work for both parties. So we are very excited that we were able to find a location that was very close to us. So now I'm going to start going into some of the areas that we have that will be relocated. And at first we were thinking, gosh, we could put some of these activities off-site at this church because it's very large, if you're familiar with that campus. But as we went through this with the other teams and us and leadership working on this, we determined that we want to retain as much of the activities on Horizon House property as possible. And so the first one we're going to talk about, you may have heard of the Monday Market. And so we are looking to put that on the East Tower, 3rd floor. That is currently assisted living area that we will be using for the Monday Market. And so this shows a plan on the screen of the yellow are the apartments that we have that we'd be using for Monday Market. Lori and her team have communicated because there are residents and families that live up there right now. So it's a delicate dance for us to ensure, and Lori has communicated to them that there will be a change and they will need to relocate. And Lori and her team have communicated to their families so they are aware. We have shared with the assisted living leadership staff that there is a change for that on the East Tower, 3rd floor. The other thing that's very important for our community to understand is we do have plenty of assisted living apartments to meet our community's needs. This is not going to place us somewhere where we cannot transition our residents into assisted living. We are confident that we can continue to meet the needs of the community. As with many other of our activities that are at Horizon House, Monday Market has storage that they have in some storage lockers and other areas, and we will collaborate with Monday Market to determine how much of that do we store off-site at the church versus how much can we accommodate once we start working on more details of these rooms up on the 3rd floor on our campus. And so just as a reminder, you take the elevator from the lobby, go up to the 3rd floor, and you'll be right there for Monday Market. It's actually closer than having to go down to E-level on the west wing. So we were very excited, and this was a high priority for our leadership team and the community, we believe, to find a location for Monday Market on site. So
we're asked, the question is which part of this is the Monday Market?
So if you look on the screen, that is the 3rd floor. It's the yellow portion is the Monday
The lighter
Market.
brown portion.
The lighter brown portion.
The mustard, it's more like a Dijon.
So if it would be, that's correct. It would be if you envision the apartments O through R of the East Tower.
So the Dijon portion, I'm being asked, correct. It's the area along the bottom and on the right-hand side. The numbers of the current apartments, it's like 249, or 349 is in the upper right.
So it's apartments 323 through 350. 323AB through 350. This is 323AB all the way up and through 350. And so we will be working with the Monday Market to identify how to optimize that space and to make sure that it can be optimized.
Is there a laser up here?
Okay, so if there's additional questions, we can answer them at the end of the presentation as it relates to Monday Market specific. The next one is important for us is the art committee. So the art committee has activities of donations that they have, and they have storage. So as the art is donated, the committee needs to process the art and go through it. And so we have a location on the North Tower B3, which is in between currently the IT offices and the staff lounge, that will be used for the art committee for their processing and art storage. So we're excited that is a spot that we can continue to have on campus. And as I was talking with the chair of the art committee, is that you may see as residents more art being displayed on the walls, because that mitigates the amount that needs to be stored perhaps, but it may not be the way it is at all times. So you may see more come up, and then as the West Tower opens, it gets dispersed throughout the campus. And then if we have to, we can put some of the art stored off-site as needed, but we'll see if we can't mitigate that so that we can keep as much of the art on our property as possible. Also, the art committee oversees the resident collections cabinet that is as you enter the west wing and go past the orchid seating area. And so that will be relocated. I call it pre-dining, but it's actually in that area where the grandfather clock had been. And there's a new piece of art that was placed on the south wall. So that is the area where the collections cabinet will be relocated. The important thing for the art committee was to have a space for this, that if a few chairs wanted to be there so that you could talk about your collection, then there's a seating area for residents to enjoy your presentation. So we're excited to have that area. We have a number of residents that have storage lockers currently in the west wing. So if you have a storage locker in the west wing, that means we'll be relocating and having your storage locker off-site at the church. So we'll be building storage lockers at the church for our residents. We'll be coordinating with staff to ensure that, coordinating with residents to have those items relocated from Horizon House to the off-site location. And as I mentioned, there's a resident committee that of half a dozen volunteers that I have yet to meet with that are going to be helping support all of us through this transition, perhaps going through and talking about how to downsize, or if we have a day where we can have donations to the Goodwill, or simply throwing things away, perhaps. So that's all your individual choices. And so we'll be having more conversations on that to come, of course, as we continue to plan the details. Today was more about us sharing where these things are going. And I can answer questions at the end as we get all the way to the end so I can get through. Thank you. And so this off-site location will have about 150 resident storage lockers, which give me a surplus just in case. Down on E level, there are a number of resident council committees that have storage lockers. Some have more than one, some just have one. And so rather than saying that if Monday Market currently has half a dozen storage lockers, if they need storage, instead we would have a room off-site rather than putting them in a bunch of small storage lockers. So we will accommodate any storage that we need off-site that cannot be on-site, and we have taken into account the needs of the committees that have storage on E level also. Resident parking will be impacted when our west wing closes, and so the transition that we'll have is we've been working with Michael, and we'll be having University Garage and Terry Garage be both valet. So we will no longer have self-parking in our Terry Garage so that we can optimize our capacity in both of our garages so that we can ensure that we have parking for all of our residents. We have learned that if we take the Terry garage and we valet, we can get a higher capacity. So we'll be adding a valet booth to the area on B2 for the staff to be able to have a phone in there and their supplies, a valet booth in the Terry garage to accommodate that change on our property. We'll also be rolling out soon a car share program that we hope will help us in having possibly less vehicles, because we may have half a dozen residents, hopefully more, that would want to give up their vehicle and take advantage of a car share program to help mitigate the needs of vehicles that are rarely driven. So that will be rolled out soon. Christy and I have just been finalizing a lot of the details on that, and Bill Roach has been very supportive in helping us through that. We'll have very limited guest parking, and that would be in our university garage. We don't know for certain what our capacity will be until we really start seeing how many residents are driving at the time, because that varies. It ebbs and flows the number of you that decide to keep your vehicle or get rid of your vehicle. I've been working closely with the garden committee, and they have a number of garden plots that are on our terraces that will go away. So what we've been looking at are options on Terry Street out here for some plantings that we can have for the residents to have gardening out on Terry. And we're also looking at the planting area outside of the terrace dining room for our residents to have some garden plots there. We have garden sculptures that are down in our terraces, and so we are ensuring that those get moved, stored, and they'll be coming back to our sculpture terrace area of our west tower. In the labyrinth that is currently painted on sea level, we do have, Linda Purdy has one that she can place out on the floor as needed. And so if there is an occasion where she has that event that she is going to be sponsoring, she'll reserve a room and make arrangements to ensure that that is available for you to have. And to look at the Terry Garden area, so the images on the screen, in the center is the paved area right outside of the library. On both sides, as you enter between the chapel and the library, we can see the gravel and the area that one leaves exiting the doors by the Myrtle Edwards room in the library. It's gravel. What we are planning to do is the area that is outside of the chapel, all of that gravel will be replaced with pavers that are identical to what you see on the center screen. The area between outside the Myrtle Edwards room and current Linda's office, those will become pavers as well. It will end at the edge of Linda's office because we have a resident apartment on that other area. And what we'll be doing where those pavers are is we'll be bringing up some of those benches that are currently on our terraces to create an outdoor seating area that is along this paved area. And in working with the garden committee, the area that on the screen where you can see the curb and the edge there, that's where we'll be adding planters so residents can do gardening in that area, adjusting the irrigation so their plants will be irrigated. And we'll be getting that work started this year so that by the time we need to vacate those terraces, our gardeners, if they want to relocate some of their plants, that we have a place for them to be relocated if they're assigned to something along that area on Terry Street. Again, with the garden committee, they have some events. We have June in our gardens, which in 2026 can be on the Parkview Terrace. And then moving into 27, the garden committee was saying they can do some presentations or they'll come up with something fun as always for as we go through 2027 and 28. We have Sunny Mondays that are going to be on Parkview Terrace for 2026. And then as the chair has done when it's rainy, they're in the fireside lounge as an option for 27 and 28. Down on F level, the game room that we have down there, any meetings and events scheduled will just need to be absorbed in our other meeting rooms. But if you're familiar with the game room, we do have storage down there for some bridge and or the poker table and those supplies. So what one can anticipate is the TV room in the North Tower on B1 to get somewhat of a facelift for us to be able to provide a better space to accommodate some of that similar storage. And for us, perhaps, instead of there being a TV on a TV stand and then a TV on a rolling cart, maybe we'll put one TV on the wall, have some nice storage for you so that we can accommodate that. Our knitting group has storage on F level. If you're a knitter, you're aware of that. Some may not. But we're looking at putting some cabinets near the Myrtle Edwards room across from Linda's office to be able to store those supplies for our knitters. Down on E level, we have resident durable medical equipment that sometimes is available for you as needed to borrow. I don't have an exact location for that. I have a pretty good idea where that's going, but I didn't want to mention it until I have it finalized. But we will have somewhere on site for that equipment for you in case you need to borrow it. And then if that space that is identified is undersized for everything, we'll put the bulk of items off-site so that we can bring it back as this on-site surplus is gone through. We have the resident picnic as an activity that's down on our terraces where certainly dining will work with the food service committee and or the picnic committee to determine the exact plans, but there is the options of the Parkview Terrace and the Parkview Lounge for 2026 and perhaps in Anderson Hall or the Terrace Dining Room, depending on what the plans are with dining services for 2027 and 2028 before we have our grand picnic in 2029. There's a meditation room in the West Wing that we want to make sure that we take into consideration. Right now on the North Tower, floor 6, there's a parenting room for staff that we actually have another one that was placed in our level 2 assisted living area, so we can take the North Tower, floor 6 for a meditation room until, as Eli alluded, we'll have a brand new one on the first floor in the Central Tower in 2026. Just be aware that the one in the North Tower, floor 6, is pretty small, so it only accommodate one person at a time. So we're excited that we at least have a place that we can still have that. And you may be familiar with the seasonal window display that our flower committee does that's so lovely along that space, but that will be paused during construction. And and then we have all of the outdoor furniture on all of our terraces. So staff will be coordinating to sell that furniture if we don't use it up on the Parkview Terrace. However, 50% of those proceeds will be provided to the Monday market. Similar with any common area furniture that we have in the West Wing, be it the F level or any of the corridors that if we can't repurpose it, then we'll sell it with 50% proceeds going to the Monday market. We also have a number of guest rooms that will close, similar with all of that furniture. We'll be selling that and making that available with the proceeds going to Monday market. And then we have, as you can imagine, in the laundry rooms, the apartments, a variety of appliances and other various items that we're looking at. And so anything that Sean decides for appliances or anything he deems he doesn't need, we'll sell those as well with 50% of the proceeds to support our Monday market. So now I'm going to shift to what we've called phase 2, which is the really essentially North Tower B2, which is not until the first quarter of 2027. So the art studio as we look by 2027, we're looking at utilizing an apartment for this group. I say to be determined because we are still in the works of the exact location, but we're looking at a modest space for an apartment for the art studio. And then the sewing room will be relocated to our package room. So if you have packages, you don't get them anymore. No, I'm just kidding. So what we'll do for packages is we'll, in the current package room, we'll retain the shelving for Central and East Tower. We'll relocate the dry cleaning to the laundry room, and we'll set up a spot on B3 North Tower for North Tower residents. So if I'm a North Tower resident, I come down to B3 to get my packages. If I'm Central and East Tower resident, I come down a Central and East Tower to B to get my packages, because we will no longer have shelving and a need for the West Wing. So there's a little bit of shifting to happen, but that's not till 2027 for the packages. So the sewing room will be sharing that space with the packages for the Central and East Tower. So we encourage you, once we get to that time, to be swift picking those packages up. Down on B2, we have the computer room, the potting room, and the wrap room. And what we're planning at this time is, as we talked earlier about third floor apartments, is to find one of those apartments in the Dijon color, the light yellow color, the brown color. Any of this area here, at this time, we're identifying one of those apartments to be used as a blended space for those three activities. Certainly by the time 2027 comes up, we may have a better solution, but right now we believe that this meets the needs of the potting room that needs a sink, needs a counter, and then further away from there we can have the product for the wrap with a table, and the computer room can have their desires met as well. So we have the resident wood shop that will be talking about collaboration, sharing with the staff wood shop that's down on B5. So that will be a space that we'll be working together with the residents to ensure what their needs are, set up the staff wood shop to meet the needs of both staff and residents. And I suspect, as in all of these spaces that I just mentioned, any surplus of supplies from the art studio, the sewing room, or any others, and the wood shop for sure, we'll be storing that surplus off-site at the church, because we don't have space for all of that equipment necessarily in our transition spaces. And resident council has an office that they'll need to continue to maintain, and we're looking at that space behind the chapel that formerly was called the sacristy for a residence council office to be in that area back there. There are Parkview Terrace events that will be displaced that have traditionally been out on the Parkview Terrace. Philanthropy's lovely ice cream social, some of the lunches that Food and Beverage has done. And so perhaps they'll be down near the therapy area in the Parkview Lounge, or finding other places. We've already talked to these groups, and they're aware that it's coming, and they're excited to ensure that they continue to happen for you. The B3 Goodwill and Recycle Center will still be accessible. If we get to a point where Anderson has to close that down for any period of time, we will certainly make an adjustment due to our community that embraces sustainability and recycling. Will ensure that that activity is going on. And then, of course, the terrace outdoor furniture. Again, there'll be some furniture and items out there that if we can't use them, we'll end up selling them, with 50% of the proceeds going to the Monday market, as with any common area furniture that we have that is impacted during that phase 2. There's a staff lounge on B3 that will be impacted, and so in collaborating with human resources and more discussions that we will have a larger assisted living break room that the staff can take advantage of. And you may see staff using the university cafe as they do now with the bistro. And then we have the innovation and technology offices on B3. And so down near the therapy offices, there'll be a transition of them going into that space down there to share with our physical therapy. So we talked about phase 1 was the west wing decommission, and phase 2 is how we're building that bridge to be able to connect to the new west tower. So as we think about, gosh, what's that timing? With construction, you always see subject to change, right? Well, we do know for sure that Horizon House must turn over the west wing to Anderson Construction on November 26th at the strike of midnight. So I've been saying all along, end of the year, well, it got moved up a little bit so that we can ensure that we continue to make progress on your community for the opening of our west tower. So that is the date that we'll use to work backwards for the planning that we have on the transitions that I've previously mentioned. And again, the bridge North Tower Phase 2, that's first quarter of 2027. And that, because it's so far out, is subject to change, but we are still pretty confident. Eli and I had conversations with Anderson Construction about timing, and we're still pretty confident on that timing. So on the screen next will be a table that is a real high-level overview of the timing of all of these things that we'll be working on. The art committee, processing and storage, and then the removal of art of the west wing. So you think about October, November is when these things are going to need to start happening. The common area furniture around October and November is when we need to start considering selling those things and working on those details. The collector's display cabinet around in November will need to be relocated. We're going to need to move those sculptures off the terraces, certainly by November when we have to turn over the campus. And you see the F-level game room storage says August, September. The reason that date is sooner is because I mentioned there will be a modest facelift to the B1 TV room for us to be able to accommodate the storage. So that's why that date looks sooner, because it's talking more about that room that changes to accept that storage. And then we're already working on the garden plots, and so that will be October, November, and the guest room furniture selling is a similar timeline. June in the gardens can not be impacted until next year. The knitting storage will be getting those storage cabinets sooner than later, but they don't need to relocate till November. The meditation room, again, November. Monday market, so that is more complicated, associated with going up into the third floor east tower and determining modest changes to those apartments. We are not taking down walls. We are not doing a major renovation of that floor because we need to turn it back over to assisted living for when we're completed up there with Monday Market. However, there will be some things we need to do. So I'll be collaborating, and we will be working with the Monday Market co-chairs and their support volunteers to ensure that we understand when will the last West Wing Monday Market sale day be for us all to go down there, and then how long will we be down until we can pick up everything, relocate it up into this new space of the East Tower third floor. I put in October, November. So those are, again, our dates. Parking for guests, residents, and staff are impacted by November. The medical equipment, October, November. The resident picnic is not impacted until next year. The resident council committee storage and resident storage lockers. So we'll be building those lockers out in August, so that we're done with them by September, so that we have an understanding of timing to start coordinating to move items over to that location in the appropriate amount of time. The seasonal window display will, the last lovely display for you to enjoy will be November. And then sunny Mondays, as I mentioned before. And then any of the sale of furniture again is October, November. And then phase 2, all of those are first quarter of 27. So that's not for quite some time. One of the things I mentioned early on was the importance of communications. And Amanda and her team met with the Resident Council West Tower Expansion Committee, and we had several conversations about communications and some excellent input from the residents, as always. And so what you can expect is that there'll be frequent opportunities for this conversation about the impacts for you. It's exciting, yet it's impactful. We understand that. There will be a Horizon House Connect landing page specifically for the West Tower expansion that will include a lot of what you just saw today. There'll be emails, one going out later today, summarizing this conversation, and newsletters that will be on a regular cadence that we're not certain of that cadence yet because the flurry of activity can ebb and flow. There'll be speaker series that Eli is planning once we get going into the West Tower construction, and there'll be Q&A sessions. As you know, Horizon House is excellent at small group sessions, and those will continue to happen for you to be heard and for us to listen so we can address that. And then we'll have community signage on our digital display and other areas. And then we always have surveys and feedback that we want to hear from residents. You're very good at giving us feedback. We want to hear it. It's really important. And so this presentation actually will be rebroadcast because Risa has recorded it for us. It'll be in here on this Friday at 3 p.m. So if you'll just be watching this video. And Eli and I will be present to answer any questions that you may have as best we can to hopefully give you a transparent, full picture of what we've been planning and where we're going on this journey in your community, that we're here to support you. So with that, we have, thank you. We have some questions and answers, and Beth is pretty good at giving us a structure, right, Beth, of how we do it. Beth, you want to quiz me to see if I recall?
Sure.
So we have the chapel portion, we have the forum, the social room, and the overflow Parkview Lounge, and we go section by section. So Beth, you have that section, chapel first. Any
Chapel
question?
is my section. All right, we'll go with Paul first.
Excellent presentation, Brian. I want to thank you for that. But I know Eli is going to cringe, but I was suggesting maybe a work breakdown structure with a flow chart so you can see where the activities flow into each other and get an idea of the time sequence.
Yes, yes. So coincidentally, in our midst today, we have Splice. They're actually in the overflow right now. These folks this is what they do. They specialize in transitioning from buildings, and a lot of their clients are like Google and Amazon. So Scott Davis, Troy Powers, Chase Bublitz. If you could stand up and wave, great.
They're out in the Parkview Lounge.
So Paul is asking for a work breakdown structure of everything that Brian just mentioned just now. Right.
So, yeah, we've contracted with them, and we have weekly meetings to go over what I just described to help support. It's not supporting me, it's supporting you and us in this. And so Eli has secured them for us, so thank you. Okay, this section, Charlene's coming with, for Jean up front.
On one of your last slides, you had something called landing. It's this, in the alert would be landing, and I didn't understand what that word means. I know what airplanes do, but
Sure, okay, sorry. So it was on the communication aspect about HH Connect. And if you ever go to a website and you click on something that is specific just to a topic, that's a landing page that's only about the West Tower expansion. So Emily has built for us, if we go to HH Connect, a page, and the term is a landing page, but it's a page dedicated just to the West Tower expansion. Emily, is that correct?
That's correct, and it's live now.
And it's live right now. So Jean, good question, because more people had the exact same question, I guarantee it. Thank you. So over on this end.
Hello, yes. My question, I'm relatively new. I've been here just 1 year. I have a storage locker. When you go out the hallway towards the garage, when do we have to vacate those? I
So-
know you said something about maybe November that they need to have that space, but most likely we'd have to vacate by October or September, or when?
So you have a locker in the west wing, so just like any other of your neighbors, we need to have those vacated by perhaps early November. We don't have an exact date. We will let everybody know what those dates are. We will be communicating that well in advance so that we can plan for that. Thank you. So now out in the Parkview Lounge,
Yes, I have a question.
Impressive presentation, Brian. Thank you. Quick question, too. Could you describe a little bit more about where the package room will be in relationship to where the Goodwill bins are and the hazardous waste? And my second question is, will there be a map produced for those of us who are spatially challenged to find all these spaces?
okay, I'll answer the idea about maps of where things are is a great idea. One of the things we did actually when the North Tower was built is we had resident volunteers as wayfinders, and they helped us. Not that I'm saying we're putting you to work, but that's a great idea because I get turned around sometimes as well. The area that I'm thinking for packages for the North Tower is you get off the elevator on B3, exit the elevator, go to your right, and turn right again. There's a EVS storage closet there that we would build a wall and put a lock on that wall door so that there's shelving in there for the packages. On B3, right outside the elevators to the right as you exit the elevator vestibule. Okay, and before I move on, just to be clear, we're doing one question per section and moving on. We're not overlooking anybody, so I apologize if it seems that way, but we'll go one question now for Beth's area, one question for Charlene, and one for Christy over there, and then Lauren out in the Parkview Lounge.
Another question about storage lockers for the people that have them in the West Wing currently. Anybody who has a studio apartment needs to visit the locker far more frequently than most people. Will they be able to have a locker on site?
So we have not determined that would be a change that we would do because that would, unless there's somebody that wants to volunteer swapping with somebody who has a studio apartment. The challenge is the way the storage lockers are mapped out for resident apartments is the storage locker stays with that apartment and doesn't change. So if it would be, for an example, if I have a storage locker and it's like, Eli, guess what? I'm going to take your storage locker because so unfortunately we can't do that. But it's a good question. If somebody has a storage locker in the West Wing, they are unfortunately going to be impacted and have their storage locker off-site. And we don't know the frequency that we'll have a a vehicle going back and forth between Horizon House and where your storage locker is. It could be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, once a day, 2 times a day. We don't know the request or the frequency that residents are going to need that. We want to meet your needs, and we'll set up a predictable schedule with our transportation team that makes sense for us to be able to plan for it for staffing so that we don't let you down. And we want to make it that staff are with people when they're at that location.
But Brian, it does sound like you're asking for volunteers also of people who are willing to give up their resident storage in the central tower.
At this time,
At least I would for you.
yes.
I
thank
would.
you.
I'd give it up for you, Brian.
So I had mentioned that there's a subcommittee of the Resident Council West Tower expansion about storage lockers. And with that subcommittee, when I start meeting with them, we'll come up with some ideas and a framework to come back and answer such questions in a better way. Today was kind of the fire hose to say these are the things that are happening, and we can really start working on more of the details as appropriate. And in general, a storage locker stays with the apartment as the apartment changes whomever's living in it. And so it's difficult to say we're going to take all the studio apartments and displace other residents in that manner at this time. So questions here?
Hi. Right now, we can go to the freeway park directly from Horizon House through the E-level on the west wing. That will be closed before the end of the year. Do you have an alternative, or do we have to go out on the streets and go all around?
Yeah, so I did not mention that. Thank you for bringing it up. Yes, indeed, the E-level walkway will be closed as of the time when residents can no longer go into the west wing. So the alternative is really coming out our front door and going down Piggott Corridor, be it the stairs or the ramp. So that is the choice that we have at this time. And there will be construction going on, no doubt, right in that area, but there will be flaggers. It will be safe for us to be able to navigate the sidewalk. There is no way that Anderson and that construction can make it so that we can't navigate that space to get to Piggott Corridor. So I want you to be confident that Eli and I have talked to that team. They'll have, be it Seattle Police as needed, and flaggers to help us navigate that area. So it is further to go, perhaps coming out of the front door versus walking to the west wing elevator and down. So, yes.
2 questions. Who's going to move the materials from our storage lockers to the offsite?
We will coordinate with a moving company or somebody to do that for our residents. We're not asking that residents pick up those items and move them. It'll be in collaboration with you, if your storage locker's there, to be with you to do that.
And the firm, the transitioning company that I mentioned earlier, Splice, who's currently here in the overflow, they'll help us manage that as well. They've got movers that they frequently work with. We have movers that we frequently work with to ensure everybody's property is safely moved.
The second question is about the patios. What you outlined is really a minimal amount. We're going to lose all the D-level patio and the park level patio for 2 years. We need some alternatives.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It's true. We don't have the footprint on this campus to provide other outdoor areas. We're going to try to make the best we can of Terry. There are opportunities to go up and visit your neighbors in assisted living on the terrace that is up there. We understand it's very undersized, and we appreciate that it is a takeaway for that period of time. So we're very transparent. We understand, and we are hoping to do the best we can with what we have. The other thing is, as was mentioned about going to Freeway Park. Freeway Park's master plan should be completed by 2026. So hopefully there are more activities going on in Freeway Park that we can participate in. Question out in the fireside lounge?
Hi. What about people who would be, is there going to be parking for residents in the church building off-site if parking is really crunched? And can people just volunteer to go there? And if parking and lockers are down there, are we going to be able to access our things if we can make the journey with our cards? Are we going to be able to get in?
So at this time, we are planning to use the parking at the church only for employees based on volume. And if we get to a point where we need to look at what you described, we certainly can. And the only time that residents will be able to access the church will be accompanied by a staff member. So your current, if I understood the question, your current credential card key will not work on their perimeter doors. So you'll be accompanied by staff. So if you need to get something from your storage locker, we would have the Horizon House van, for an example, go there. We'd have a cart inside the building to transport items to and from your storage locker and the van, and then back here at Horizon House.
Thank you.
Beth? Charlene?
So just a question about outdoor spaces. And I see that planted area that's on top of the transition between East Tower and North Tower. Is that accessible space?
So the question is about our green roof, which is visible from certain parts if you live higher up in the building or in a certain part of our building. That is not safe for residents to go onto. Our contractors go out there to service it, and our engineering team can go out there, but it is not slated for a safe space for us to have residents go out there. Good question. Question over here. Christy's on her way.
Just a small point. When you create maps, could you put the symbol of north on the map?
Absolutely. I actually thought of that early in the night. I was like, oh, I forgot to put a north arrow. Yeah.
Okay, I'm heading north out to the Parkview Lounge. Question?
Yeah, 1 second.
It's on. I've not been here for air conditioning season yet, so this question may be known to others who have. But with the storage lockers going to the church, that's where the air conditioners will go. And will Horizon staff be bringing that over? Because I understand they're the ones that install the air conditioners when you need one.
Yes, absolutely. If you have what are called the move and cool air conditioners that happen to be in your storage locker, staff will ensure that we get that to you and installed when you need it and request it. No problem.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for asking. Beth has one for us.
The cost of insurance on the property and goods that will be relocated off-site will involve insurance, and I presume that will be capitalized in the construction cost of the new West Tower. Is that correct? Because you'll have significantly more insurance risk involved here. So your insurance, I hope, will fully cover any liability and losses caused by the relocation of people's personal goods from their storage locker to this other site.
Yeah, we have costs associated with the West Tower, and this need of this space is part of some of the impacts that we foresaw in having to build the West Tower expansion.
I would presume there'd be no deductible involved for the residents here if they are suffering any loss at all due to the relocation of their personal goods to off-site.
Yeah, I don't know how we would work that out. Christy, do you anticipate?
If there were any damage to your belongings or you lost your property, that would be a Horizon House insurance claim, and we would pay that deductible.
If there was a loss to anybody's property that was off-site, that would be a Horizon House claim to handle that.
Yeah. I mean, currently, as it currently is, anybody who were to suffer that type of damage, Horizon House would cover that. Yes, cover that deductible. I don't see how that would be any different than if Horizon House were to move it off-site. Yeah. Will that?
Christy, do you anticipate that being covered under the capital cost of the West Tower if that event were to occur, is what she's asking, or would it be a separate operating cost of a insurance claim?
Well, we have plenty of insurance products covering the West Tower, and we have a very generous general liability policy that would be covered there for any liability issues. I'm not quite sure I see the relevance of whether it's operational or capitalized, but
Should be included in the cost of.
it is
Should
included.
be included in the cost of building the tower, not in the operating costs of the individual parts of the existing part of Horizon
I think the
House.
cost of separating that out to make that distinction is probably more expensive than just carrying it as part of our normal
It is
policy.
being carried as part of the West Tower project cost, yes.
Thank you for the question. Any questions here, Charlene?
So, yeah. Sure. Barbara, you're.
Do you have a question or do you only have a?
Yes. How much will the noise from the decommissioning affect the park terrace?
The question is how the noise of the demolition
And
of the
dust.
West Wing, how much of that noise will be perceived by residents inside in those apartments? The Park View Terrace. I'd imagine you would be able to hear it just fine. Yeah.
Anderson are taking steps to mitigate noise, but there will be times of noise, loud noise, especially during the decommissioning of bringing down the West Wing. And certainly being outdoors on the Parkview Terrace would probably be the most impactful space to hear that. So I think, Carol, you're going to...
I do not think that hearing protection would be required. So yes, it'll be loud, it'll be annoying, but it won't be so great where in order to use the Parkview Terrace that you would need hearing protection. I would think that it's probably, I should keep my mouth shut. So if you're a West Wing resident currently in a V or in a V or W stack and you open up your sliding glass door and you hear that loud freeway, you don't need hearing protection for it, but it's really loud. I would assume that the noise would probably be equivalent to if you're on the Parkview Terrace listening to the construction activities, the demolition, and even future activities.
Does construction go through weekends too?
No, currently we are only, the hours of construction are only Monday through Friday. Yeah.
Okay, questions? Christy has somebody?
I have it. This question has to do with the computer room and the archive project. When we met, we discussed it down there, but the question of what happens to the archive project and its filing cabinets, do they go with the resident council's move?
It's up to whatever you want, we'll do. If it needs to go with the resident council office space, then we'll do that. If it needs to go where the computer is, we'll put it
I think
wherever.
Miriam was told where it was supposed to go, so the question is, here, let me give it to her.
The residents' council archive shares space with a computer room, and you had a meeting with the computer room and forgot about us. So we don't know where we're going to be in the interim. If you're planning to move the Residence Council archives, which includes the filing cabinets in the computer room, to the 3rd floor, that works out fine.
Okay. I apologize. When I met with the resident council about the office, that was discussed, and I apologize you were not included. However, we'll put it in the 3rd floor computer space as discussed, and if we come up with a better solution prior to that, then we'll make that adjustment. Thank you for your understanding.
Thank you.
So Parkview Lounge, Lauren?
Are there any questions in the Fireside Lounge?
Fireside Lounge.
Did I say that every time?
Yeah, every time.
You did.
I got it right once.
I just want to be crystal clear that there will be no off-site parking of resident cars. And I also want to make it clear, get clarification with the, will visitors, non-residents coming to visit somebody be required to find their own street parking?
So to be crystal clear, at this time, we anticipate all residents parking on site. We anticipate that we'll have limited parking for guests, and as I mentioned, to be determined on how many residents take advantage of the car share program to reduce the number of vehicles that provide space for guests. However, if we did an analysis today, let's just for conversation's sake, we have 120 parking spots in both garages. I don't know what the number is, but this is conversation. We did an analysis and we had 100 parkers of residents. Well, we have 10 extra spaces for guests. But in 3 months, if we have residents move in or get more vehicles, then that number changes. At this time, we anticipate meeting the needs of residents, limited parking for guests, and then they may have to find parking on the street or elsewhere if they're coming to visit.
And
that's our current plan.
Yeah, and Brian, I know that there's been residents who've come to me, and I've directed them to you, who ask, well, what if I want to give up my car? I haven't driven it in over a year, and it's time for me to give it up. Would that be beneficial to what we're trying to accomplish, and who's the right person for me to speak to?
Michael, the garage supervisor who manages parking, would be the person to speak to, and yes, that helps us with what was just discussed, is because we have only so much square footage in our garage that can fit only so many vehicles, and we're going to try to make the best we can for you.
And Michael would help sell the car?
Michael could help sell the car. Our priority are the residents parking first.
Yes.
Number one. That's our priority, number one.
Yeah.
Okay, Beth has somebody with a question.
I'm looking at where the Monday market is proposed to be, which is on the 3rd floor in the east wing, right?
Yes.
Anyway, and currently there's a security lock on that door if you use the stairwell for the east tower, the fire escape stairwell. Will you be able to undo that lock so that those of us who want to use the stairs to get to the market don't have to use the elevators?
So in the east tower stairwell, on the stairwell side, you can gain entry to the corridor, no problem. To exit that, there's a keypad that has a code on it that you use to exit. And we will evaluate if that will go away during the time of Monday market on that space. But it's a Roman numeral code that's right on the keypad that you look at and use it. So but we'll evaluate removing that.
I have a question. You had a screen with the dates of all when things are going to happen, when they are going to happen for this year and for next year.
Yeah.
If that's going to be printed out.
Well, we were going to keep it a secret, but since you asked, Barbara, Emily already added that to the email. Emily, did you send your email yet? Not yet, but it's all ready to go. It's probably already on the web page that's live. Emily has all of that ready for you to look at, and those are approximate dates when we're going to start making those changes. But thanks for asking, Barbara, because we want to make sure that we're crystal clear and transparent on that. I have another question that Christy's going to find over here.
Regarding cars, a year ago, more or less, I had to sell my car because it was just sitting there enjoying the parking space. And I went through Mike, and it was wonderful. If anyone is considering it, I tried the outside, and there were so many complexities. Going to Mike and going through the garage was just, thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, Michael sends out, if you haven't seen, Michael does these very creative emails on vehicles that he's selling or supporting residents to sell that he sends to staff that are extremely creative and great. So, Lauren, you have anything in the fireside lounge?
Do we have any questions out here? No questions at this time.
Beth, we have one.
I have a daughter who lives near Portland, Oregon, and when she comes up to visit, she spends the night, and her car spends the night here. And I'm concerned if that's going to have to be out on the street during all this. Do you have any answers for that?
I would be equally concerned sometimes as well, and I don't know if I have an answer today. Based upon what I described earlier, we're not going to know the 100% capacity based on the number of vehicles residents have and how many take advantage of our car share program. It's difficult to know today, but we have folks that if they're spending their time overnight, we'll evaluate that as an opportunity to support you and your daughter.
There might be parking garages nearby, like at Virginia Mason, that have overnight parking, so the car can still be parked in a garage without having to be parked on a street.
Yeah, and we're, like, for an example, for contractors and for caregivers, looking at like the convention center and those parking garages as well for them as we go through this transition. Charlene has one, or Eli, yes, yep.
Is this on? Yeah.
Yep.
Currently, we have 2 window air conditioners that we use, and in our storage locker, when we moved in, there were 2 additional large boxes with air conditioning units. And I'm wondering whether we could reduce the resident storage space some by kind of consolidating those someplace outside of our storage locker.
Yeah, so I don't know why you would need 4, but I guess we'd have to look into that.
No, we
Yeah.
have 2 window units which were in there, and those are what we use. And then there are these 2 mobile units that are
I
in
see.
boxes. In
Well,
there.
maybe we'll touch base separately. We can
Okay.
sort that out. Thank you
Okay.
for bringing that up. Christy has one over by the piano for us.
Brian, I heard you use the term excited earlier in the presentation. I'm waiting for that term to kick in for me.
So,
but anyway, my second question is concerning the decommissioning of the West Wing. I looked up that term, and decommissioning means the removal of nuclear material. Now, once you have that all out, how's that unit going to be taken down? Are they just going to use these big cranes, or are they going to explode things?
So, Eli, hang on. For a moment, before we go into that, I was hoping the community would be excited with the way we found spaces for you.
Yeah.
And it's a huge milestone for this community because it's a change. And I was excited, I hoped, based on working with Bill's leadership and others of the committees to find what are the needs and to find solutions. And my hope was, Bill, you heard the excitement just now, that the residents are excited, I hope, as I am, to share the news that we found solutions. While we're seeing an obstacle, we found an opportunity. And so, there.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
excitement.
So thank you. And then there had been a presentation that Anderson spoke some to about how this building's going to come down. Eli can mention briefly, and then there'll probably be more between now and the time it happens.
Correct. And by the way, I want to continue with what you were saying, that Brian, despite my best efforts trying to find where there's gaps in his plan. He's been very, very thorough, and I think you've done a wonderful job, Brian. So wonderful. And what makes it even more thorough is just meeting with every single stakeholder. I mean, that's probably, it's more than just sitting in your chair fantasizing about solutions. You're literally meeting with everybody to...
I missed the archives, though.
Yeah, you did miss the archives. You did. So quick answer, though, is long reach excavators are going to be pulling the building apart. And then they'll be crushing it up on site and putting it into dump trucks and hauling it off. But we will have subsequent presentations.
Okay, one more round of questions per section. Lauren, in the Fireside Lounge.
Yes, I have one. 1 second.
Yes, I have another question with regard to guest parking. Will there be a possibility of making a reservation for a guest who's handicapped and can't walk very far, so off-site parking is not possible? I have my older sister comes for lunch periodically.
That is an excellent point that I had not thought of, that we will absolutely consider how we can accommodate that. And hopefully we can navigate that for your family and for others that have that similar situation. Thank you for bringing that up. Beth, anything in your area? Yes.
At what point do you think the Terry Garage might go valet?
It would be, so we're going to, looking at October, November is our timeline, because, so October, November, we'll know sooner than October, November, but we'll let folks know when we'll be making that transition. Because we're handing over the building on November 26th at midnight, we have to have all the vehicles out of there before that. And so we would rather not wall it off if you have a vehicle over there, not let you get your car out. And so it may be a week before that or 2 weeks, depending on, we need to build a valet booth. We need to ensure we have the appropriate equipment there and the staffing for Michael. And we'll be making that change going through October, and then the real shift happens in November. We have one here.
The question about reservations for a handicapped person in the garage is a good one, and I wondered if it would be possible to just consider, I'm suggesting, considering a reservation system for people like me, who my daughter may be coming next Saturday for dinner. Could I reserve a spot in the garage for her car?
I see. So,
just a suggestion.
So a little bit of a theme about guest parking, where perhaps there's a way we have a certain amount that people reserve on known guests. Somebody's coming to spend the night. Somebody's coming for dinner or has mobility challenges. So that's something certainly I can work with Michael once we have a better handle on all of the parking adjustments. It may not be known exactly when we make the change, but we have a window of time to continue to modify and pivot and make it as best for you as possible. Okay?
Just a clarification, when you said that you're handing over the West Tower, that's November 26, 2025 or 2026?
It is this year.
Okay, so anyone that has stuff in storage, if we don't want it moved, we have to have it out by October 2025. Is that correct?
We will share the date at another time. We're not landing definitively on any other date than November 26th, which, Eli, what was the first date long ago that you heard?
Oh, before...
when's your birthday?
January 12th.
So initially it was January 12th, which happens to be...
my birthday, yes.
November 26th.
Everybody write it down, yes.
And November 26th happens to be...
Oh, your birthday, yes,
My
yes,
birthday.
yes, yes. But back to Salama's point is what you were saying is the residents can actually do us a favor by reducing what you have in storage. It'll make it just so much easier for all the movers and organizing it. Yes,
Yeah,
in
it's
2025.
this year.
In 2025 of this year.
The fall of this year,
Yes.
and we'll have a subcommittee of these awesome residents helping me to be able to navigate through some of the resident storage lockers. Okay, if there are individual questions thereafter, people can come ask me, but we are at a point where we were going to draw this to a close. Thank you, everybody, for coming today and listening. The thing is that as I started talking about the transitions is going to need us to think about our values, right? And we leaning into our values of trust and collaboration and caring and our objectives of meeting your needs. And as I've met with all of the residents for all of these spaces, they have certainly been willing to make accommodations and make change. And when they told me what their needs are, I trusted them, and they hopefully feel like I heard them. And Eli and I are excited to be able to share this today, and there'll be more information coming. So thank you.
Thank you.